Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Today we'll be talking about overcoming adversity. Imagine standing in a busy street on the corner and being hit. You have your whole life ahead of you. You've planned what you want to do. You're a former dancer and you're thinking what your next stage, and all of a sudden, your leg is taken away from you from an accident. Imagine how devastating you would feel. Well, my guest went through this pain. She'll be telling you about her own struggle and how she found her joy from all of this pain. My guest is called Dara Pollak. She was a former ballet dancer dreaming of Broadway, whose plans in life were totally altered by a changing accident. Dara will share how she's moved past this pain and find purpose in her life. As an Instagram influencer and a food writer, I'm super excited that she's here to join us to share her own story of adversity, story of pain, story of struggles, but also story of finding your joy no matter what you're going through. Meet my amazing guest, Dara. Welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. As I said in my introduction, today's conversation is really one that inspires you. Have you been caught in any kind of adversity and not quite sure? How do you turn your adversity, pain, whatever, struggle into joy? My guest, Dara Pollak, will be telling you her own journey on how she's managed to do this. A former ballet dancer dreaming of Broadway plans. Have you always had this dream in your life that I am definitely, this is my roadmap, I'm going for this? And all of a sudden, boom, that changes. Your plan, your direction changes. Well, no, ask no further. She's here with us. Let's have this conversation. How are you, Dara?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well today. Busy day in London. It's been one of those days that you're just constantly going after one thing after the other. But it's nice in a way, but at the same time it can be overwhelming. How
Right.
are you? And where are you joining us from?
Yeah, I'm in New York. I'm in Williamsburg, which is in Brooklyn. And I'm home, I think we're all kind of home at this point, but yeah.
I think so, because we're still getting used to being home and transitioning into the different our old ways, our pre-COVID ways of life, where everyone's still struggling. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about who are you? If someone asks, who are you?
Ooh, that's a big question, but who am I? Well, my name is Dara. I was born and raised in New York, so I'm a New Yorker through and through. I've lived here my whole life. I mean, I've traveled, but always kind of had my home base here. I was a dancer growing up, and I mean, now I pivoted into being a food blogger and a food writer and a photographer and social media consultant. I feel like I've had like 9 lives with my career, but we'll get into that. Yeah, it's just been kind of a wild ride and a lot of twists and turns, but yeah, kind of here we are.
So, what was it like growing up in New York? Because everyone always asks me when we watch New York. I remember watching New York, and what really drew me to New York was them watching. I think was it the Christmas movie? Oh, gosh, I can't remember. Not problem. I'm trying not to say Problem Child because it wasn't Problem Child. It was Christmassy.
Was it Home Alone?
Yes.
Home Alone too. Yeah.
It was a child's face. I can only remember, but it was that was always what drew me to New York. I would see the taxis, I would see the beautiful things. Tell me, what was it like growing up in New York?
Yeah, well, so I had a nice experience with growing up in New York because my parents split when I was younger, and my dad has lived in Manhattan pretty much since I was 5 years old, and my mom lives in Queens. That's where we lived, me and my brother. But being that my dad lived in Manhattan, I was spending every weekend in Manhattan, which, I feel like exposes you to a lot of like cool and unique things that you may not get anywhere else necessarily. Like my dad is full of energy, loves to take us around all over the place. So we did all the touristy things you could imagine, like all that stuff. And it was just like, it really does kind of, I don't know what the word is exactly, but it definitely has an impact on who you are, I think. Like there's just a different energy that New York has. I know that's cliche to say, but I do think that it's true. So it was definitely fun growing up here.
So being a ballet dancer, requires immense discipline, immense focus, immense attention. I'm trying to get my 4-year-old to be, stop dancing, and I can see the struggle because she still hasn't memorized that. It requires quite consistency, lots of discipline. Did you suffer any kind of challenges in trying to maintain your routine and trying to maintain a balance, health-wise, fitness-wise? How did you get into it, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. Well, so for me, I started dance simply because I was 4 years old when I started, and it was because a friend of mine was in the class, and I was like, "This looks fun." And you're 4, so when you're 4, I think you just stand up there and you kind of wave, like you don't really do anything just yet. So once I got into it, though, I found it to be really fun, and I stuck with it. And for me, dance was always kind of a like release, if you will, of like emotions. So anything that, happiness, sadness, anger, like that was the way I got it out. It was very much my creative outlet. And so for me, the balance, like I think a lot of times as kids grow older, especially with dance, since it is such a disciplined kind of, sport, that they will lose interest in it and prioritize their social life. Whereas I did the opposite. I was like spending more and more hours at dance and less time with my friends. So I just like, I guess I craved it in a way subconsciously. And the balance, like with, things like weight and stuff, that is something I used to struggle with a lot because I don't have the typical ballerina body. I was actually much more of a tap dancer. So like I kind of leaned into that as I kept going with it. But yeah, I always loved food. I always loved eating. So I was just like, I'm never going to be one of those like super skinny ballerinas. I just know it. So yeah.
And then your accident happened.
Yeah.
Then, this whole thing, because and even though you might say the ballerina, you were dancing, you were enjoying it, it's something you still love because you can say you spend less for time with your friends because you were spending more time with this. So must have been very traumatic for you. What were the emotion and how did this happen?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a crazy story. I was I was working a part-time job at the time, and I was standing out front with a friend of mine, and it was like in front of a storefront, and there was like a parking lot situation, kind of like a strip mall, and this woman who was older and not supposed to be driving, she was backing up out of a spot, and she just like dropped it into reverse and just flew back and pinned me against the wall by my leg. It was, I won't be too graphic, but let's just say it was a compound fracture. It was very bad. My leg was basically hanging on by a thread, and I was awake the entire time, though. I didn't go into shock until we actually got to the hospital, which a lot of people found shocking. And people were calling me Superwoman, which I was very okay with. I was like, I'll take that. But yeah, once I was in the hospital, I kind of didn't know really what I was in for in terms of the like road to recovery. I was 17 at the time. So this was a few weeks before all of my dance auditions for, colleges and things like that. So it was literally like the doctors had said to my parents, not to me, she'll never walk again. Like they said that, and she'll never dance again. Like, but they weren't telling me this because they didn't want to scare me. I was a kid. So I didn't really know what I was in for. And I was in the hospital for a month. Afterwards, I was homeschooled for half of my senior year because I couldn't walk, so I couldn't go to school. And it was just like the worst feeling ever because I kind of just, I was depressed, obviously. I knew that I was not in a good way, but I also didn't know that my career as a dancer was officially over until like later on, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Wow. Can you
Yeah.
tell us about when you actually found out, you said you didn't know, you didn't go to shock, but when and the doctors were not even communicating with you, but when you actually found out that this is your life, this is
Yeah.
what's actually happening, how did you deal with that shock?
Not well. I mean, if I'm being honest, I was a kid. I did not know how to manage my emotions well at that point. Like I said, dance was really my outlet for any kind of grief or anything. So I was just pretty miserable to be around, if I'm being honest. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I was not a pleasant person to be around. I was mean to a lot of people who loved me. I pushed people away. And because I didn't know what to do. I was like, my life, everything I envisioned was just gone in an instant. It's just crazy how that stuff can happen and what it does to you mentally. So what I did start to do eventually was therapy, which helped. But I mean, I had horrible PTSD from it. I couldn't even be in a car for a while afterwards, forget driving a car. Anytime I heard tires screeching, I would have like a PTSD episode. I mean, there were a multitude of things that I felt so abnormal, like compared to my other 17, 18-year-old friends who are ready to go off to college. And I'm just thinking about when's my next surgery. Like I've had like 18 or 20 surgeries on this leg. It's ridiculous.
Oh goodness, it's so funny that you just seem so well now. I can imagine the recovery process. So when did you finally know that now I need to take matters into my own hands and really get back to life again, start
Yeah.
living my life again? How did that happen?
I mean, I'll be honest that like I am a pretty strong-willed person and I'm pretty stubborn. Like I remember when they did say to me like, okay, you're keeping your leg, you will be able to walk again, but it's going to take years. It's going to take, you're going to walk with a limp for the rest of your life. You're going to walk with a cane. And I was just like, no, I was like, I'm not accepting that. Like, I was like, I'm going to do physical therapy as much as I can. I was like, I will get back to dancing. I will not walk with a limp. I was like, just so headstrong in that belief that I think that helped push me forward, because even my mom jokes about this to this day. When I was on crutches, I would be like hopping around on one foot and like, she would be like, use your crutches. And I was just like, no, it's like, I'm going to hop around on one foot, and I would be doing like tricks with my crutches. I was just like, not, accepting that that was going to be my forever like outcome. So basically I pushed myself really, really hard in physical therapy. It was painful, but I was walking again within a few months. I did walk with a limp for a little bit, and with a cane, like in high school, but I got back to dancing probably a year later. Not the same that I could, like not at the same level, obviously, because I still have limitations with it, but like I was probably dancing a little over a year later, I'd say. Yeah.
You are so determined. That
Thank
must
you.
give you so much mental strength to pursue this. Then you started Skinny Pig NYC.
Yeah. Yes.
Food blog in 2008. What?
Yep.
Is it because of the accident that you decided that, okay, I think it's something is now best. I used to balance my acts, not just focus everything on dancing, but also go to other things. What was that? What was going through your mind when you did this?
Yeah, so it kind of came to me a little later. It was actually after college. So basically, after I knew that I couldn't pursue a dancing career, I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I have no idea what other things interest me except for food. Because when I was laid up in the hospital and when I was at home being homeschooled, I found it very relaxing and cathartic, like watching people cook on TV. It was just like, oh, we're making this and la la la. And I was like, this is nice. This is what I need. And I also love to eat. So I took some solace in that, but I didn't pursue a chef career because I can't physically be on my leg for the restaurant, life that you have, like 13-hour shifts and stuff. I can't even stand for more than a few hours on my leg to this day. So I was like, I know I can't be a chef. So I was like, I like clothes. Fashion sounds cool. I'll go to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology. Meanwhile, I can barely dress myself to this day. So it was just like, I knew I needed to be in New York. And I chose advertising and marketing as my major because I kind of was drawn to advertising. And I graduated from FIT. And I just still was like, I don't want to work in fashion. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And the economy was in like the toilet at that point. It was 2007, 2008. And I got a temp job at Pfizer where I was doing like coding. I don't even know what I was doing. And I was so bored that I was like, I need to like do something. And I made a food blog. I was like, I'm going to just write about food. That sounds fun. Let's just try that. And so I used some of the time that I was at Pfizer to start building my blog. And that's kind of how it started.
Right. And is that what caused your because you're very much a social influencer, anyways. Was this what led the social influencer on? Because it's something you talk about. So how did this social influencer get into the food blog?
Yeah, so that didn't come until way later. Like, to be honest with you, whenever people ask me about being an influencer, I'm always like, I didn't ask for this. It just kind of seemed like it happened. Because so the blog I started in 2008, and The name, the Skinny Pig, by the way, was a nickname. I probably forgot to mention that, but it was a nickname because when I was dancing, I was eating so much, but burning all of it off. So I would eat ridiculous amounts of food, and my friends were like, "You're like a skinny pig." So that's kind of where that came from. So there's that. But yeah, it was just a blog for many years, and then Instagram came around, and I think I discovered Instagram maybe 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there, but I just had it as a personal page. And then I realized, like, this could be a cool place to house my food photos. Like, why not make a Skinny Pig NYC Instagram? And so that's what I did. And I just started sharing my food photos, my recipes, my restaurant visits on Instagram. And it was like 2015, I think, maybe, when it kind of snowballed. And yeah, my following just grew like crazy. Like I really was not trying in any way to make that happen. It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you're now a freelance food writer
Mhm.
and
Yep.
a recipe developer. What do you think sitting down at a meal creates? Why do you think it creates that bond between two people? Because I think you just said you love eating, it's something you enjoy. But why do you think food creates that bond between two people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to explain why exactly, but I think it's like this sharing element of sharing something that you love or something that you created, and then you can share that with people you love. But what really did kind of hammer it home for me was when I was in the hospital, because I was, again, very miserable when I was in the hospital. But the one thing that used to cheer me up was when my friends or family would visit and they would bring me home cooked food or food that I really liked from outside. I just remember feeling like super excited about that, because it was like one of the few things I could actually look forward to was seeing my friends and family and also eating with them. So it kind of just seemed like
Yeah,
this is a positive like channel to like put the energy that I used to put into dancing. This is a positive place to put it. And that's kind of what I did.
did it help you overcome the pains and challenges you were going through in hospital? And did it help you bring other people to your table, like other sick patients? How did you integrate that with them as well?
Yeah, it definitely brought me more close with like the people who were visiting me, again, my friends and family. When you're, I don't know if this is how it is over by you, but here, if you're under 18, you're still technically a kid, like pediatrics. So I had a single room, so I wasn't like sharing a room with anybody, how you normally do in a hospital. So in a way, it was like kind of a benefit, but I did also feel a little, isolated. But I really did have a lot of family and friends that were visiting me every single day, which helped a ton to keep my spirits up. So the food was just like a nice added bonus.
Yeah. So Dara, I have to ask you, how does the impact on the environment factors on your new recipe? Because I see you're not just a blogger anymore. Now you've taken it up to the new level. So how does that impact really affect your recipe?
Well, when you say environment, do you mean like what kind of just like the food like
Yeah,
environment that we're in right
the
now?
environment, do you do it seasonal? Do you do it,
Oh,
how do you normally do it, your food
sure.
recipe?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so I don't, I'll just be honest in that I don't do as much recipe development as I used to. So just being upfront about that, but I still do it occasionally. And it's usually seasonal. I try to use things that are current or like maybe a trend, but not like, I don't want to use the word trend in the social media context. Like, I don't like stunt food. Let's put it that way. I don't like to waste food. So I'll say that because I think a lot of social media now has kind of glorified this like over the top food porn stuff, which it's funny because I used to do that when I started out. It was like kind of a trend that was just on the rise and I would jump on it. And now I'm like, it's gotten so over the top and it feels so wasteful that I really try to steer away from that, if anything. And now I try to do more simple things that are just like a few ingredients, like simple recipes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I love
Yeah.
seeing some of your recipe and they're just really phenomenal. Easy to make as well. And they're not that complicated and very, I tried something over the weekend. It was very nice. So I'm glad that you are sticking to that kind of simple, which is something that really agrees with me. You
Yeah.
are an Instagram social media coach and influencer.
Mhm.
Recently, there's lots of talk about the stress associated with maintaining a presence on Instagram.
Mhm.
How has this pressure impacted your life?
Yeah, it's definitely impacted me. So on top of like COVID happening. And then right after, in January of 2021, I went through a very bad breakup where I was just like blindsided, didn't see it coming. When, we lived together, it was one of those awful situations. And I felt like and I couldn't bring myself to be posting anything on Instagram because I felt like it was a lie. Like I was miserable and I didn't want to be like pretending that I was happy when I was really sad. So I was kind of dark on Instagram for a bit. And then I'd have followers and friends being like, hey, you haven't posted anything in a while. Are you okay? What's going on? How come I haven't seen you on my feed in a while? And it kind of created this pressure that I was just like, damn, I was like, I have to be showing up to these people. But then it was also like, but do I? Like, I need this time for me. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a really tricky space to be in. You have to know what you're getting into. You have to be prepared for that kind of a situation if you're somebody with a large audience, I think. But it can definitely take a toll. Comparison game is very real on social media. And I was like sitting there being sad and kind of not posting anything. And then you look on Instagram and you see all these other people who are doing amazing things and creating new stuff. And you're just like, oh, I should be doing that. But then you got to take a break for your mental health. So yeah.
And when you think of the Instagram mental health, the pain it gives one, comparing it with when you had the pain, the accident, how do you quantify? Do you use the pain that you went through the accident to help your mental health? Because in that pain was a different kind of pain, because there you had no choice. You were going through this pain of being a normal 17-year-old kid who someone just all in one day almost destroyed your life. And then there's the social media pain, that also your pain of your posting. But some days you just don't feel good enough. You don't even have the words to express how you're feeling. How do you quantify both pains, and how do you tell people who might be going through both either challenges to deal with it?
That's a great question. I'm going to take a second to think about that because like they are different, like very different, but there are of course similarities. So like, I mean, for me, one thing I'll say about going through something super traumatic like that car accident was that when I think back on it, I'm always like, if I can get through that, I can get through almost anything, especially like at that age in comparison to now. I leaned heavily on therapy and friends and just people kind of keeping my spirits up, but also I like more recently in the social media like side of things, I lean pretty hard on the self-care side of things. Like I really like taking time for myself. That's why I advise people, if you're really not feeling social media right now, take a step back, just like try to collect yourself, do things that make you happy. I always say, just like find the things in life that bring you joy. Like for me, that was making breakfast every morning and reading a book instead of checking my phone the second I wake up. Like I never do that anymore. And it's been such a game changer. And everyone's like, how do you wake up and not check your phone immediately? I'm like, I don't touch my phone for probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half when I wake up. It's not a good way to start the day. So like checking in with yourself and making sure you're doing things to, like I said, bring you joy, bring you peace, and just like give yourself that space, I think is the most important thing you can do. And therapy.
And you started an organization that takes care of this, where you want to take your community off the social media platform. How difficult are you finding this, trying to convince others, trying to get them to understand the damage of social media? Because a lot of people tend to believe what they see.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because and it's especially interesting for me because I literally coach and do consulting on social media for clients that I work with here in New York. So it's like, on the one hand, I completely believe that it can be a powerful marketing tool. I think that most people, especially I work primarily with like restaurants and like food brands, things like that. I think it's very important to have that presence. But on the flip side, for a creator, like somebody like myself, I think it's important to try and diversify a little bit where you're actually showing up, because I think the biggest mistake, and even my restaurant clients too, I tell them the same. I'm like, if you're not building an email list, if you're not, talking to your customers like in person every now and then, like if you're just relying on Instagram, what happens if Instagram goes away? Like we all think it and then we don't really do anything about it. So I was just like, I have to try at least and get some of my audience off of there and listening to me on other platforms. That's why I started the Substack, and just it's a whole big thing.
Yeah, I love what you said. We all think it, but we don't do anything about it. Not just if Instagram goes away or any social media handle goes away. What if they take you away as well? Because they could just all of a sudden, boom, before
Yeah.
you wake up in the middle of the night and you go check your phone and you're not there. How do you handle that pain that you've relied so much on this and then is all taken away from you? My final question to you, Dara, is that you're based in New York. Yeah, New York is one of the best cities in the world. I still testify to that. I've been to New York a number of times. I love it. The street food, the culture, the people.
Yep.
What would you say is your selling point in New York?
Selling point. Yeah. So there's a bunch of selling points for New York, but obviously I am a food blogger primarily, and I think the food is one of the best things about New York. I do think there are plenty of other things to do here that are fun, but usually when I go anywhere in the world to travel, I'm kind of mapping out my itinerary based on the places where I'm going to eat. So I'm just like, pizza, bagels, those are the things that you definitely do not want to miss when you come to New York. I mean, I have pizza tattooed on my arm. I don't know if you guys can see that. I take it very seriously. Yeah, I feel like the food is a big draw for me. Yeah.
So we should definitely try out the bagel, the pizza.
Bagels, pizza. I mean, honestly, everything here is really good. I have like lists on my blog of, the best burgers, the best pizza. There's just like a lot of different things that you can really enjoy when you're here. I mean, obviously there's theater also. As somebody who wanted to be on Broadway one day, I always say I'm glad that Broadway's finally back. Like, I'm going to a show this week and I'm so excited. There's plenty of things to do here. It's a great place to be.
Oh, Dara, I'm really thrilled to have this conversation with you because you've just shined a light on the mental pain that comes when your life changes all of a sudden. And you also shined a light on social media pain, which is something we don't talk about too often. We're a bit shy about it. So any final words before I let you go?
Final words, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think just be kind to yourself and don't put so much pressure on yourself when it comes to social media. Like, if there are people who are creators listening to this, I think that just, yeah, try to have fun with it again. That was what kind of changed things for me. That's where the Misfit Creatives thing came from. I started kind of poking fun at the industry a little bit. I do these like silly videos on Instagram and TikTok, and I just try to enjoy it again. I weave in humor as much as I can, even to serious situations. That's always been a part of my brand. And that's really what's kind of brought it back for me, which was nice. So again, getting in touch with yourself, I think, is important for moving forward.
Sarah, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate your honest conversation and helping us move past just thinking one thing is the real thing, when we could expand our horizon and explore other new ways of seeing the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.